Okay, I know I'm sick. Just bear with me here, guys. A while ago, I made this post on TikTok. Follow the TikTok, by the way, if you haven't already. And I asked, what is the most overrated weapons in all of Souls games? Now, for me personally, I think the Bloodhound's Fang is the most overrated weapon. And good lord, did this ruffle so many feathers. So I thought to make a video discussing the good and the bad of Bloodhound's Fang, and why I personally think the weapon is completely overrated. I do want to make a quick disclaimer though. This video is not in any way meant to put down any player that likes the weapon or uses it, and this video will strictly be talking about PvE and not PvP. Elden Ring is such a vast and beautiful game that lets you play how you want no matter the playstyle. If you want to just play the entire game spamming Glintstone Pebble, you are more than welcome to, because you bought the game so you can spend your time however you wish to. This video is purely for discussion purposes and my personal opinion on the weapon. But with that being said, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the good first. The Bloodhound's Fang is a dex-scaled curved greatsword with 18 strength and 17 dex with a C scaling in dex and innate 55 bleed, which is pretty good honestly. Its Ash of War Bloodhound Finesse has a 2-part attack with the second attack follow-up having iframes for 20 frames, which is again pretty good if you can pull off the full Ash of War. And on top of that, it has more iframes than both Bloodhound Step at 16 iframes and Quick Step with 15 iframes. It's also one of the few somber weapons in the game that can be buffed with greases and weapon buffs, so it can be fairly versatile in terms of damage. This means if you were to stack bleed grease on top of the innate bleed on the weapon, you get a total of about 85 bleed buildup from your weapon. The skill on this weapon, like mentioned before, has a 2-part attack that does some really good damage if you can get the full thing off, and deals 22 poise damage per hit, which is again not bad at all if you can get the full thing off, dealing a total of 44 poise. Which means bosses like Malekith, Morgott, or even Godric, you can poise break them fairly easily if you get multiple Ashes of War off. Not to forget, you can get this somber weapon within less than 15 minutes of starting a new game, and get it to +9 if you know the somber routes fairly easily. With all this, it makes it a pretty good early game weapon for speedrun, but when it comes to good things about the weapon, that's pretty much it. I want to reiterate, it's not a bad thing if you like this weapon. Hell, on my first playthrough, I used this weapon with Bloodflame Blade because that's the weapon I was told to use as a newer player. But at the same time, I think it's misleading, and that's why we should talk about the bad of this weapon as well. A lot of the comments I got on this post were pretty much the same overall, stating,
you don't actually know what you're talking about, and Bloodhound's Fang is goated.
But they never really explained why they think so. But there were a few diamonds amongst the stands explain their reasoning why they believe Bloodhound's Fang is not overrated, which I will go over in a little bit. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is almost every guide out there will tell you to use this weapon if you're starting out in Elden Ring, but never really talking about how technical this weapon really is. This thing's charge attacks, while yes, it does some pretty nice damage, is super slow and barely ever saves to get one off depending on the fight, let alone two. I remember in my first playthrough, a lot of the issues with the weapon that I had were that the animations were super slow and clunky, and I felt like they never really strung together well like most other weapons. It honestly felt like a confused child that didn't know whether if it wanted to be a greatsword or a curved sword. Now I know that might not be the most groundbreaking comparison, but really even most greatswords out there have a moveset that feels right with the weapon, and so does curved swords, but with this weapon its moveset just feels weird in the most logical sense. I think for a lot of newer players, going for things like the Twin Blade that you can also get in Limgrave super early can have a better moveset, and it's easier to understand for newer players. If you were to start as the Samurai class, you can even go to the Death Touch Catacombs and get a second Uchi Katana. Most of these weapons I listed before can do the same, if not more, than the Bloodhound's Fang with an easier learning curve, so the claim that it's good for new players never made sense to me personally. Now enough yapping, I want to take some time to review these comments and try to go over whether I agree or disagree with what they had said. Nephew, its Ash of War hits insanely hard and it's buffable. The claim that its Ash of War hits hard is great and all, but but that's if you can hit its full thing. Chances are, the animation takes way too long to do, not to mention the recovery frames of the first half, let alone the second half that takes way too long to safely use. And saying it's buffable doesn't really matter, because you can buff the Nagakiba or the Uchi with the same build you would with Bloodhound's Fang, and slap either Unsheath or Double Slash to do even more damage that's mostly safer. It's only overrated to people who don't know there's a follow-up attack up to the skill. Good luck safely pulling off that follow-up attack on a Radon, Mesmer, Radagon, etc. Literally, this is what I've been saying earlier. I get that the Ash of War has iframes, but it would be different if the iframes were somewhere towards the start of the Ash of War. Why not use the Death Knight Longshaft axe that has the blink at the start of the Ash of War with a jumping follow-up that can be used to jump some moves, since we're using that logic. It's just too inconsistent to really make use of the full Ash of War on Bloodhound's Fang. Not overrated, one of the best weapons in Elden Ring. But why? It's a very solid weapon with decent damage and scaling that you can get in the very first area of the game. It's not the best, but it definitely isn't the worst thing you can pick. That is true, honestly. I by no means think this weapon is complete buns, and I agree with the statement that it's not the best nor the worst. I don't think this weapon deserves the title the best weapon in the game, when weapons like Starfist and Iron Balls, or even the Blood Fiend's arm, are right there in the completely outdamaged Bloodhound's Fang by a long shot. Then again, it's not the worst. This weapon has really good bleed, and has potential to even put good greases on it for certain matchups, like putting Frost Grease to deal both frost damage, and maybe some bleed damage on most bosses that can be bled. This comment really stands above the rest because they did one thing that no other comment did when I asked them why. They actually explained the reasoning. It isn't overrated, it's just one of the best weapons in the game and you get it super early. May I ask why it's the best weapon in the game? I wouldn't say it's the best in the game. I said what I said because, as I previously stated, you can get it pretty much right off the rip. It's a somber weapon and you can get it very early. I agree, you can get this weapon very early, like stated earlier, and you can get it to +9 pretty quick if you know where you're going. But the average player isn't going to go through all of that just to get a +9 to defeat early game bosses, unless you're doing like no hit runs, which again, the average player isn't doing. It's one of the few greatswords in the game that scales with dex, which is a plus because dex weapons are some of the best, and having stats and dex to use a greatsword opens up the ability to use other weapons that are dex scaling. Bloodhound's Fang being a dex scaling greatsword is great and all, but unless you're pairing this thing with another Bloodhound's Fang or current greatsword for like a jump attack build, which is pretty good and viable, this thing has little to no synergy with any other weapon. I mean, if you wanted to use this weapon with, let's say, a long range weapon like Bolt of Grand Sax or something with Stormblade, that's absolutely fine and all, but you're missing out on the proccing the bleed that does so much damage. I really respect this person because they took the time to actually give reasons as to why they think Bloodhound's Fang is one of the best weapons. Again, everyone is absolutely entitled to their own opinion on what they think about the game they spent their own money on, and I would honestly love to hear more opinions about this kind of stuff because I want everyone to be able to learn about the game they love. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if so, make sure to leave a like and a sub, as well as leave a comment as to what you think the most overrated weapon is in Elden Ring. And if you like videos like this, then stay tuned, as I'll probably do a video on what I think the best weapon in Elden Ring is.